The Gene Pemberton halftime interview is brought to you by Howell Dental Associates, South 31st Street in Temple. Dr. John Howell, Wildcat 1959, making smiles in Temple for 36 years. You're listening to Temple Wildcat Football on K1017.
Hey, welcome to the halftime in the state championship here at AT&T Stadium. Boy, we got a special guest here today. One of the person I just admire so much. Been a friend all my life that I can remember, and he's Mr. Temple when it comes to football. And I tell you what, he's been involved in getting to speak a little bit to these Wildcats that are making the push for the state championship today, and he's got a lot of history. In fact, Temple's been to the state championship game 9 times in their history. 7 of those times, counting today, Bob McQueen has been there. 5 of those 7, he's been on the sideline. Of course, the 2 championships we won, he was not only on the sideline, he was in the middle of the field hoisting up his wife and family and everybody else. So we're going to have a good time today. I'm going to let Bob do the talking. He's the man of the hour, but we wanted to have someone that's very, very typical of what Wildcat football means, and there ain't nobody around more typical than Bob McQueen.
Thank you, Gene. It's great to be here. I'll tell you, people don't realize how difficult it is to get to the state championship, especially when you are a normal community, not a bedroom community where everybody moves out there. It's got a good player, like has been happening so much in high school football in Texas. They have magnet schools for good athletes, and Temple is just a normal town, and we have all the good athletes, the not so good athletes, and so on and so forth. Same thing about math or whatever else it might be. But Temple has an unbelievable tradition, and I know these kids that are playing this afternoon, many of them were like me when I grew up in Temple, and I can remember laying in bed at night, had an old rag football, and I'd throw it up and catch it, and if I hit the ceiling by accident, I was in trouble with my mom, but I'd throw it up and catch it and dream of someday playing for the Temple Wildcats and wearing those blue front white back pants. You know, you grew up here too. We grew up together, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Bob was a really good football player growing up, and we was on the south side of town, and we'd play the north side over there at the VA Center at R. Dixon School. And Bob introduced me, he and his teammates that played with us, introduced me to the dirt, how it tasted. But the 2 times we won the state championship, this man right here was on the sidelines, and that had to be one of the great highlights of your life.
Well, it had been a dream of mine. My dream was, and it started back in the 9th grade. Another example that, dreamers, if you're willing to work hard and sacrifice, sometimes you can make your dreams come true. And my dream was to be a coach, and then my dream beyond that was to coach at Temple High School and to be able to bring Temple their first state championship. I know we had been there, the bridesmaids, so many times, and that was something that I always wanted to be a part of. And when that happened in 1979, of course, that was an amazing bunch of kids. And, of course, we had the one truly great football player in Kenneth Davis, and then we had a bunch of other kids that were really good high school football players, but our deal was we just played hard. We tried hard. Those kids were physically and mentally very tough and very committed to what they were doing, and they were a fun group to be around, Gene.
Yeah. One thing, too, that I've heard some people say, that this may be the best defensive team we had, but to me, it's not the best defensive team. It's battlers. But you had it. If people want to know what good defense is, they need to go read that granite marker outside the press box.
Well, but honestly, Gene, I think this defense compares favorably with any defense we've ever had that I've seen or been a part of.
Especially with offense.
Yeah, because of the offenses that people run now, and the way that they move the football. And football is so much more cranial, for lack of a better word. There's so much involved in decision making at the line of scrimmage and reads and things like this. And defense is just harder to play now than it was then, in a sense. And back then it was so physical and everything, and now it's physical, but it's also so mental. There's so much involved, and I think this defense we have right now is a great defense. Yeah. And we had in 1976, we played Killeen over there, and I'm sure you were there.
Yeah.
They had 25 yards total offense. But to play a team like Foster, like we played last week, and hold them to 24 points, that's about equivalent because they were good, Gene. That was a good football team we beat. We beat two teams 2 weeks in a row that had won 27 games between the 14-0 and 13-0. And that says a lot. But it takes more than defense. I tell you, the guys that are my heroes on this football team, and there's a bunch of them, but our offensive line, if you look at them physically, there's no reason they ought to be in the state championship game because they're not very big. And I was talking to Coach Spradlin the other day, and he said Mark Johnson ought to be Coach of the Year. He coaches our offensive line. Mark played for us back in '78, and our offensive line just gets everything that you possibly get out of their talent, and they are fun to watch. And certainly in other areas, our defense and our wide receivers are lightning. They are lightning. They are so fast. The Hess kid throws deep as good as any quarterback I've seen.
Puts it on the money.
He's amazing. And it takes all of that and things in the kicking game, the pressure kicks that the Wiley kid has made for us.
He's
and everything.
Sophomore.
Yeah, it takes all of that. It takes all of that to win big. I was visiting with Barry Switzer one time, and Barry told me, he said, Coach, the hardest championship to win at any level is the high school football championship in the state of Texas because it's a single elimination round robin. You play to a winner, and I think he's right.
You finally broke that barrier, and we got that first championship in '79. But getting there, a couple of guys, you played for Coach Cottle, he and Kiefer Marshall are good buddies, who's in Texas Hall of Fame. They played in that 40-41 championship game.
Yes,
we
sir.
lost both of those.
Yes, sir.
And then in the 52 and 53, that was the Doyle Trailer era. And
I was a little kid sitting in the stands. I rode to the game with my aunt. I went to Abilene, and then I went with an uncle to Dallas and watched that game. And I was a little kid sitting in the stands. I think I was a ninth grader. I saw both those games.
So you were both those games that
Yes,
way.
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's amazing because the next time you'd come back home as a head coach.
Yeah.
And you didn't have a lot of experience.
No.
And yet we sitting down there playing the state championship game against San Antonio Churchill.
That's right. And Churchill had a great team. They had a great defense. But the thing that helped Churchill more than anything was that we had lost our good running back in the regional game. Charles Young had a high ankle sprain. And, Charles Young was a world-class sprinter. In the semifinals, we lost one of our linebackers, Brian Cottle. Because of that, Carl Robinson, our offense started depending more on Carl Robinson with Young hurt. And Carl, we were playing both sides of the ball in, and Carl was also starting inside linebacker. He had to take Cottle's place at linebacker. So Carl was going both ways, and then as luck would have it, it turned out a balmy defensive afternoon in December, and we got beat. They caught a pass. The guy was flat on his back in the end zone, and Kenneth Doan had tipped the pass, and the guy caught it, and that's how they got their touchdown. And
well, that brought the town of Temple to life for sure, and then
yes.
a couple more years later, that's when the breakthrough came.
That group was on a mission, and I think our Wildcats are on a mission. That group in '79, they were on a mission. They really were. Talking about Coach Cottle, Coach Cottle is one of the big reasons why I got into coaching. He was always a friend. He coached me in high school, and he was always a guy that I just thought and still think so much probably one of the best offensive football coaches I've ever known.
He's amazing, and he's 93 now, and he lives and breathes Wildcat football.
Yes, sir.
Well, we're running short on time, but that '79 team, you broke the barrier, and then the '92 team, that was an awesome bunch of athletes you had then.
They really were. Everybody was perfect for the position they played, and I know that Bill Forney, who I went to college with, Bill was the head of the UIL then, and Bill made the statement that '92 team was the best high school football team he had ever seen. They were mighty good, I'll tell you. That, of course, I've had a lot of favorite football teams, but that was a great team.
Really team, and I know you had started a sophomore quarterback, Mr. Simpson.
Yeah.
And he's at Elgin now. But,
yeah.
They gave us...
that's Adrian Woodson.
Woodson, that's right.
Yeah, Adrian Woodson. And he's a high school principal now. now. He retired coaching.
Did he? Well, his sister's my buddy, Tamara.
Yeah, Tamara.
Yeah. So, that brought us up to we went back again after you'd retired. We went back with Coach Spradlin in 14 and went to the last play of the game before we lost that game.
Yes, I know. That was so tough.
So the 9th time is today.
That's right.
And hopefully when the final buzzer or final whistle blows, we'll be there.
It's our time, Gene.
And just comment shortly. We don't have a lot of time, but on the other sideline is one of your friends.
Yeah, Randy Allen, the Highland Park coach, played for us when I coached at SMU. And he coached with his high school coach at Bryan, Merrill Green. He was assistant coach down there. So Randy has coached teams that had played Temple for a long time. And, of course, Randy and I and Jimmy Keeling, who used to be the head coach at Hardin-Simmons, we have always been sort of a threesome and everything. And my deal is I want our Wildcats to beat him one more time. We beat him several times when he was at Bryan.
Well, that's amazing how these things, in the coaching profession especially, you guys are all tight and what goes around comes around.
Yeah, and I tell you, Gene, we hadn't talked about it, but I'm so happy for Scott Stewart. Isn't he amazing? And he's done a great job, and I'm so proud for him. And I coached at Belton whenever his dad, Larry, played for us, and he was our quarterback, and I was coaching line then. I can remember him well.
Well, he thinks a lot of you, too, and I know he's telling me the other day you spoke to his kids, and he really appreciated that, too.
Yeah.
You know, one of your legendary tales is about the 5 smooth stones.
Yeah, that's...
and he said he called you and asked you specifically, would you come tell those kids about that?
Yes.
And so, you know, Coach, you've meant so much to Temple, and you're here with a lot of your family, and boy, it's special to have you. Always is. And 9 times to the finals, and you've been there 7 of them. So thank you a bunch, and let's pull them through this second half. Go out there and clip somebody if you have to.
Go Blue.
All right.
Go Blue.
The Gene Pemberton halftime interview is brought to you by Howell Dental Associates, South 31st Street in Temple. Dr. John Howell, Wildcat 1959, making smiles in Temple for 36 years. You're listening to Temple Wildcat Football on K1017.